2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome to the NESN Soccer Podcast. I am Mark along with Marcus. And Marcus, I'd like to begin by apologizing to any return listeners we may have on this episode. We haven't podcasted in 20 days according to the internet and our database here that shows us the last time we pushed out a podcast.
This thing called a calendar.
Right. But, the holiday happened and things have been very busy in New England. And we have finally gotten back around to it on this Friday, November 30th. And a lot has happened, but we want to focus in, I guess, on a few topics that'll kind of outline. The MLS Cup Final will be next weekend, as well as the Copa Libertadores Final, which has been rescheduled. And then we'll look at a few matches of the weekend that will be coming up in the next couple days. But we're going to kind of start with the U.S. men's national team, which we haven't talked about in a while, and for good reason, I think.
Why is that?
They've been in limbo, I guess is the easiest way to put it.
It's because I refuse to until something happens.
Well, it seems that something is finally about to happen. I think it's the secret that everybody has known about, apparently for a long time, that Gregg Berhalter is supposed to be the next coach. Many outlets have been reporting it. Basically, just to line up what Gregg Berhalter is, he's a 45-year-old New Jersey person.
He's a human being. You can use the pronoun.
And he's been coaching the Columbus Crew since 2013. Coached in Sweden for 2 years before that, and began his coaching career as an assistant for the LA Galaxy. You can look through his Columbus Crew career, and there's some good moments and some, I guess, not so good moments. I guess probably more good than bad. And then if you look at his playing career, he was a U.S. men's national team player, played in the 2002 World Cup, which of course the U.S. did very well, and then was on the 2006 World Cup roster but did not appear in any games. That World Cup team was knocked out in the group stage. And then his club career, he was University of North Carolina soccer player and then played for Crystal Palace in the second division in England when they were in the second division. Played in Germany, ended his career in MLS. So nothing really jumps off the page there either. Basically, my biggest question with Berhalter isn't I believe he's earned it. He's clearly a hardworking coach. He's been in Columbus grinding away for 5 years.
Has it been that long?
It's 2013. It's 2018 now.
Yeah, right,
so he's been grinding away in Columbus, which, definitely requires everything that you would ask of a coach. And he obviously knows U.S. soccer well. But it seems like his biggest attribute, or the only thing that I can kind of think of that would make U.S. men's national team lock in on him so strongly, and the reason I say that is because we really haven't heard anything about any other potential hires, is that he's American. I don't know what else is really jumping off the page besides the fact that he's been a coach for almost a decade.
Well, I think you're not necessarily coming at the story in the, let's call it the right way. Gregg Berhalter was, as you were laying out this question this way, yes, what makes him stand out is the fact that he's American. But you have to remember Gregg Berhalter, the player, during his career, he wasn't one of these guys who was born with a lot of talent. A lot of physical gifts. He was one of those players who kind of had to work his way out of what was then, I think, pre-MLS, kind of the American backwater. When it was sort of a backwater in the world soccer stage. And he had to work his way to Europe, and he played there for several years. Most of his career he spent in Europe. So he is that American player. He's not like a Landon Donovan or a Christian Pulisic, somebody who's got a big reputation,
Right.
and then goes, gets recruited to a European team and takes it from there. Berhalter had to make his own way in the sport as a player, and to come from where he went, UNC, to played almost 44 games for the United States. That's
pretty good.
That says something. 2 World Cups for a player who was not blessed with all the athletic gifts,
The talents.
yes, the physical gifts that other players. It's hard work and determination and intelligence, I think, were that drove Berhalter through his career. So that is a long-winded way of saying that he probably knows better than most what made U.S. soccer, I guess, overachieve in the
early 2000s.
Yeah, let's call it early. Right, in the between the late 90s and early to mid 2000s. It wasn't talent. It wasn't these magical players who come along once in every 30, 40 years. There's a certain spirit and a certain ethos that the American team plays with, or at least they had historically. And I think a lot of others would agree with me that they've gotten away from that. Never give up, always fighting. Rocky IV, basically.
Rocky IV. That's a great comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you put it that way, I guess I hadn't really looked at it from that perspective.
Well, that's what I'm here for.
That's right. The sort of grinder mentality is something that maybe U.S. soccer needs right now.
Right.
I think it's kind of been a knock in recent years, the sort of, maybe a little spoiled sort of the way that U.S. soccer sort of has become.
Did you call them overpaid tattooed millionaires?
No, I really wanted to avoid. I wanted to avoid saying that, but it's not really. It's not really wrong.
That's what you're getting at.
It's not really wrong, but it's also U.S. soccer as sort of let's call it a corporation. Just the way they've kind of been presenting themselves and pushing things out, it just seems so commercialized when the team really hasn't achieved very much at all. They got like a few Gold Cups. Like, what else is there to really show for?
Well, that's what they're playing for, is the Gold Cup, and playing to win it.
Yeah, and so I guess getting back to that grinder mentality is something that should be positive, I would hope. And
I'm just taking a look back at Gregg Berhalter's playing career. He spent the bulk of it, or at least certainly his sort of prime and veteran years, in Germany of all places. So I remember when he played at Cambuur in the Netherlands. I had completely forgotten about the Crystal Palace stint that lasted all of about 1 season. But then he spent the next 6 or 7 in Germany with Energy Cottbus in 1860 Munich. And yeah, so Gregg Berhalter, whenever there are young Americans coming up in German academies, I think he's still plugged into that scene. And if a guy like a Julian Green comes along, or John Brooks, German-born players of American descent, sounds funny to say, but there are a number of them. He can, fairly certain he can speak the language, German. Yeah, he'll be able to continue the nurturing that German influence that came into the national team in a big way under Jurgen Klinsmann.
So I guess we've sort of answered one of my initial questions, which was...
Did he get the job because he's an American?
No, not that one, which I think is definitely a gigantic part of it. But the sort of idea that U.S. soccer seems to have been set on him for quite a while.
Yes.
And there was a report that like Julen Lopetegui had reached out to U.S. soccer, which who knows how true that is. But I guess it sort of adds up that if they are looking to kind of change their culture through the head coach, that Berhalter makes sense, and that's why they had been set on him. And Lopetegui, I don't think would have really done much changing of culture, and is kind of like a big name sort of thing that has backfire written all over it, I think. Like, I was interested to hear that the report that he had reached out to U.S. Soccer, or that he was potentially a candidate.
So you're saying no matter how quote unquote good the national team coach is, at least from an X's and O's perspective, there's a chance, possibly a good chance, that it could backfire.
Well, I just think that there's some people that wouldn't be right for it. And Lopetegui is like, chases the Real Madrid job.
What kind of person wouldn't be right for this job? Because you're actually getting toward your answer, the answer to your own question
Is
of why Gregg Berhalter. So
I think I know what you're saying.
Who wouldn't be right for the job? Maybe somebody that is not well versed dealing with American players who,
Right.
For lack of a better word, let's say they're not as good as those on the Spanish national team.
Right. Or the German national team.
Yeah, for a guy like Lopetegui, who's used to working with, who's on Spain now? I don't, working with Sergio Ramos, coming in and dealing with John Brooks might be a different, might be a different bag of whatever.
Ramos, Iniesta, Diego Costa, David Silva, to Pulisic, McKennie, Michael Bradley.
It's a different job.
Yeah, much different.
And I think, the American job is unique in that you're not taking players from Real Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, and 2 other teams and, rolling balls out there. You're pulling guys in that some play in Mexico, some play in Europe, a bunch play in the United States. You might have some in Sweden. And it's all these styles, all these influences, and you only get them for, 3 or 4 days at a time every few months. And what you're trying to do is, get them all on the same page. I think that's harder to do than somebody coming from a more homogenous league or country or national team setup like Spain or just about everywhere else.
Once again, Marcus, you smoothed it all over for me. Which leads me to my last question, though.
Do it.
My last question about Berhalter, and this is more a question about U.S. soccer, I guess, is, and maybe they just simply weren't set on Gregg Berhalter yet, but why did U.S. soccer wait until the end of the 2018 MLS season to, and again, this is still a report, Berhalter is not officially U.S. soccer men's national team head coach yet.
Right.
But why would you wait until after the 2018 season to get the ball rolling on this when all Berhalter did this past year was coach the Columbus Crew, which God bless the Columbus Crew, and now they're staying in Columbus, and that's great. But something tells me somebody else could have done that job while Berhalter did the seemingly more important job of coach the U.S. men's national team.
First of all, the job Gregg Berhalter did in Columbus this year was spectacular because he had to keep this team focused and got them to the playoffs when none of them knew what was coming next, where they were going to be playing next. I think that adds a little extra spice to the, we have to kind of give him extra credit for doing it in that circumstances. But I digress. Why did they wait so long? Well, Carlos Cordero wasn't elected until February.
Right.
Then he did his review of the operations and decided to hire a general manager. That man was Ernie Stewart, who didn't come along until August. And then Ernie Stewart had to do his review and kind of decided what he wanted in a national team coach. And I think he talked about that in September.
Yeah.
So now we're getting into,
at that point, this
in the last 3 months, he has done. Now I've only heard of 2 people were formally interviewed for the job, which was very surprising. Berhalter and Oscar Pareja, I believe, from the soon-to-be ex-FC Dallas coach, or he is ex-FC Dallas. It's really just in the last 3 months, and we've known probably, or at least rumors have been pretty confident for the last month that Gregg Berhalter was going to get the job, or is going to get the job. So why did it take so long? It's because people that are making decisions wanted to get their people, wanted to hire their people to make the decisions. And, you know, I think if Ernie Stewart started on August 1, it's now almost December 1, August, September, October, November, 4 months to make the most important call that he's going to make as USA general manager. I think that's okay.
Yeah. I think it all does kind of line up, and Columbus Crew's season ended on November 11th.
Now, the only problem is, can I cut you off?
Sure.
Because this has come to me now, just in recent weeks, I think since our last podcast. The problem with this thing taking so long, and it stems from, you know, it's an offshoot of the disastrous failure to qualify for the World Cup.
Right.
And it's taken me, it took me about a year to really realize the toll of the U.S. not qualifying for the World Cup. And that toll is, do you want me to tell you, or should I wait another year?
No, I think you should tell me. You can't do that and not tell me.
the toll that, you know, it's become clear to me is apathy. Is that these things that go on with the U.S., you just kind of becomes less interesting and less important. You know, maybe I'm not following how players are doing who are playing abroad every single week because, you know, they'll struggle to get into a national team that's going to struggle to get into the World Cup. So what is the point? So, yes, while I credit U.S. soccer for moving, I guess, relatively quickly in light of the fact that a boss came in February and then he hired somebody who started in August. They get credit for that, but the year of apathy, I think, that is set in, certainly in my feelings toward this team, is it's damaging, very damaging.
I completely agree with you because I just think about the last set of friendlies that the U.S. had playing England and Italy.
How much of those games did you watch?
I watched the entire Italy game, but I was on an airplane, so it doesn't count really. But as I'm watching that game, Italy scored in the 94th minute to win the game 1-0. And I don't think I've ever cared less about a U.S. soccer game, win or lose or draw, than just watching Italy score. And that's...
And as anybody that listens to this podcast has heard me say over the last year, I'm not watching it. I'm not worrying about this team until they put somebody in charge that is going to start taking them forward, i.e. a coach.
I do think that, they've worked themselves pretty much back to let's not call it square one, but really, really step back. This is like
1993 U.S. soccer, back when it was...
And it's not missing the World Cup has obviously brought them all the way back, and but if they had gone to the World Cup, they were in shambles as a team. They weren't going to get 1 point in the group stage, let alone advance.
Well, says who?
Even if you put them into any group. I think it was pretty clear when you watched.
Depends on who was in the group.
If you watched their last 10 games as a qualifying team, it was bad.
Yeah, but a lot can change between qualification and when the World Cup kicks off.
That's true. But, okay.
I see what you're getting at.
Yeah.
I won't fight you on.
Is there any other aspects of U.S. soccer that you want to... well, I'll say this. The U.S. soccer will have its January camp, and they'll play Costa Rica. That game is scheduled for February 2nd in San Jose, California. So that will be the debut of the new coach, Gregg Berhalter. That game won't feature any European players.
Probably not.
American
they
European players.
Do.
Yeah. So it'll be entirely MLS Liga MX roster, but it'll be the debut of the new coach. So
Gregg Berhalter will start his career with
God knows who. But that's
with a half-baked squad of kids and wannabes. So yeah, I guess I'll be saying the same things until March. Great.
Well, yeah. So just to look at maybe if you're thinking of what are the significant dates to look out for U.S. soccer, it's I guess that debut on February 2nd, and then there's a there's a friendly window in March or May or both, but then they play the Gold Cup in June.
You're right.
End of June, and the final is on July 7th as I look at the schedule now. So up until then, I'd say after the Gold Cup, we'll have an idea of what the new coach is all about. And as of now, I think we've hammered it as much as we can.
That's you're talking 9 months from now. We're gonna have to wait to make a determination.
Well, that's how it goes.
Of whether this is a good hire, a bad hire, big mistake. Did they drag their feet? What do we get out of it? We've been waiting a year, and now we have to wait another 9 months to answer any of these questions.
Which is why our interest is slowly dying. But something tells me we're going to bounce back, Marcus. We'll be back on board come July.
We'll see. Yeah.
Okay. Now, we're going to jump ahead. Well, is there anything else you want to gripe about with U.S. soccer?
No.
By all means, go for it. It's...
I'm done.
Okay. So, coming up, not this weekend, but the following weekend, December 8th and 9th, there are 2 finals taking place.
Yeah.
One probably a bigger deal than the other, but both a big deal, I would say. First is the MLS Cup Final, which will be played between Atlanta United and Portland Timbers, hosted by Atlanta United. I mainly wanted to bring this up because it'll be at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Mm-hmm. Assuming it will be a sold-out crowd and a wild atmosphere, as Atlanta has quickly developed that reputation for having.
Let's assume it is, yeah.
It'll be Saturday, December 8th at 8 o'clock on Big Fox, national channel. So, one, I'd like to credit MLS for not trying to compete with an NFL Sunday in their MLS Cup Final, which they have done way too many times.
Previous finals were on Sundays, for the most part.
So, good for them. And
now it's a Saturday night.
That's okay. I think 8 to 10 o'clock, it's going to do, there will be more eyes on it. Maybe ratings not so much, but there'll be more eyes on it at bars or wherever.
Do you watch a lot of sports on Saturday nights?
At a bar, sure.
Do you go out to a bar on a Saturday night to watch sports?
I have. But also,
really?
It's starting at 8.
On a Saturday night?
Well, hold on. It's starting at 8, being over by 10. That's a window where you can sit back and watch the game and then go out.
Or trying to be up in the club by 10.
Well, you have to hold off till 10:30.
10's a little early.
But I don't think we're going to get into X's and O's of Atlanta versus Portland, but I think it's just kind of...
That'll be a quick conversation if I'm involved.
It's just kind of a good development of Atlanta United as an MLS club. This is their second season, right?
Yeah.
So
a lot of for a lot of the last year or so, I can speak to there's a couple people I speak to fairly regularly about MLS, and they've always tried to upsell Atlanta's merits, the merits of what they're doing on the field, saying they're the best team in the league and they play this great brand of soccer. And I always said, stop. They went out in the first round of the playoffs last season.
Yeah.
And that was my trump card. It was, you can't argue against that argument. You can't say they're playing the best soccer or are the best teams when you're going out in the first round, albeit on penalty kicks, but still. So this is I think reaching MLS Cup for them is a vindication of what they've been doing from a technical standpoint on the field. And they have all sorts of records, most goals, biggest crowds, blah, blah, blah. It's caused this feedback loop where the team plays a certain way and they do well and the fans love it. And the team responds with better performances, and the fans respond by coming in bigger and bigger numbers. So, yeah, hats off to Atlanta. Portland.
Oh,
I haven't seen much of them. I don't want to say don't know much about them. I don't want to reveal my East Coast bias, but it's their second MLS Cup Final appearance since 2015. They won in 2015. I guess two teams that I guess we can describe as MLS 3.0. Two 3.0 teams in the final.
Atlanta United has the highest attendance in MLS in 2018. Had the highest attendance.
History.
Historically? Was it historically?
Highest average attendance, yeah.
So, I think it's sort of, obviously you earn it on the field, but it's sort of good for the fans, I guess, to earn this event, hosting MLS Cup Final.
Yeah, I always liked MLS Cup Finals in neutral cities.
Yeah. But this will be cool.
It will be. I thought about going down there. Well, it's too late now, but
it's never too late, Marcus. You can report live.
My brother lives in Atlanta.
Perfect. Stay for free.
It'll be a good game to go cover.
I think you should go, and you should report back. It will be a fantastic NESN Soccer podcast when you return, and before you go.
Yeah.
Keep my fingers crossed.
It'll be a tough ticket. I couldn't go down there and just get a ticket on my own.
Oh, you get a credential.
Well, I understand that. That would be the only way I can get into the stadium for what will be.
I do wonder what tickets will cost to it.
I'm not sure, but this will be one of the biggest games in MLS history. Just knowing that, one, it's a final, it's that market, it's their first final. Wow. Should we move on to the other?
We should move on, but just
other final.
Extremely quickly, the cheapest ticket right now is $207.
Wow.
So that's
for a Major League
Soccer game, and that would get you upper goal section 323, row 21. I'm not familiar with Mercedes
in the back.
I'm not familiar with Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but it's pretty clear that's up there.
Wow.
But yeah, let's move on to Copa Libertadores Final.
Boy.
This has been a fiasco. The first leg was delayed because of, what was it, field conditions? It was rain?
Yes, the first leg was delayed. There was a...
so that was...
I think it was a one-day delay where it was an utter monsoon the day it was supposed to be played.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward 2 weeks for leg 2, and do you want to explain what went down?
Well, the fans attacked a bus. And we've heard of this before, but the Boca Juniors bus was, I guess, sort of like bombarded. It was very, very bad. Many players were hurt, kind of minor injuries. I think that all players are going to be available for the final, but the game was at River Plate. And from what I read, the Boca Juniors bus, which, first of all, the idea that, like, you kind of have, and I understand there's a ton of fans around the stadium, but it seems like fans always know when and where the bus is going to be coming from. And it's, regardless of whatever city.
River Plate games, you know how the bus is going to enter the stadium. Sure.
Well, maybe they should switch it up. But regardless,
switch what up?
Just constantly have the bus and get to the stadium a different way.
But you can't drive it. It's not like they can use the people entrance.
Right.
There's only one bus entrance.
Well, apparently the bus went down a specific road, and I'm not going to try and name it, that's like the River Plate, like that's the official, like, where there are several bars and places to go and hang out before and after a game.
I think one of the biggest things to understand about what happened with the Boca Juniors bus is that security and policing were woefully under either prepared or they just got it wrong.
Yeah.
And that's, from maybe having the route, the bus, the processional route was wrong. They didn't have enough, enough security member to control the crowd. This is the biggest game in 100 years between these teams. So, they were understaffed, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that the G20 was going on in Buenos Aires. So a lot of the world leaders were in town or either on their way. Vladimir Putin was trying to get a ticket to this game.
Really?
So, this was there was a lot going on in Buenos Aires, but Yeah, the police and the security really mishandled it, which created the conditions where thugs or overzealous fans could attack Boca Juniors bus.
People with bricks.
And yeah, it set up one of the most surreal, weekends of soccer that I've experienced, at least, where there's this big game that we're waiting for.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be Saturday at 3 p.m. and then
it's like 5.
Waiting.
Rescheduled.
Then, it was rescheduled for 5 p.m. So you're waiting, and then it's.
Didn't they say it was going to be the next day at one point?
Yeah. Then they rescheduled it for Sunday, and Sunday, I was thinking, okay, this is gonna conflict with the Patriots game, and then 2 hours before it was supposed to go on, it was announced that the game was going to be postponed indefinitely. And just yesterday, Thursday, November 29th, I'm not sure, did CONMEBOL make an official announcement?
I thought it was official, that it's...
Well, so far as I understand, the game will be played on the 9th?
December 9th.
At Santiago Bernabeu. Okay, yeah, so this has been...
at the Bernabeu.
Yeah.
In Real Madrid's home stadium.
The grand final.
At 2:30 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, December 9th.
The biggest game, and, some other Twitter users have pointed this out, the irony. The competition that is named after somebody who helped liberate South America, the different countries from Spain, is being played in the capital of Spain. Yeah. So, Diego Maradona was just blasting the decision. And when I was thinking about it yesterday, what an own goal from CONMEBOL. Obviously, they sold the final to the highest bidder, or to somebody that was gonna put on a show for them. I guess CONMEBOL decided that River Plate was not going to host this leg,
which I think is fair. I mean, you don't think it's fair?
I mean, it's just such a big occasion. It robs this club of,
Well, maybe they deserve to be robbed.
100 plus years of existence is leading up to this moment, and it robs them of it.
Well, they had the moment, and then they destroyed the bus.
Yeah, but I think the punishment is too harsh for the crime. There, I said it.
Oh, man. I don't know, Marcus.
This final
several players went to the hospital.
I understand what happens. I mean, I'm a Boca Juniors sympathizer. But just, what it... This was such a uniquely Argentinian or Argentinian occasion and event, and it was something where we were all supposed to turn our eyes toward Argentina and think about soccer in Argentina and what it has meant and what it means going forward and what it's going to look like. And instead they take it away from Argentina, and they haven't published reasons for how they come to this decision. They could have played it in a different city in Argentina and it still would have been a monstrous occasion. On one of Argentina's biggest TV stations, the game was supposed to kick off at 5:30 p.m. Last Sunday. Do you know what television started? Television started covering the game pregame on one of their biggest sports stations.
It was supposed to kick off 5:30 p.m. local time?
Yeah. Pregame's coverage started at what time, do you think?
All right. I mean, now you bring it up, I'm going to guess 9 a.m.
7:30 in the morning. I mean, this... It's hard to describe, hard to overstate how big a deal this is in Argentina and for Argentina.
Yeah.
And CONMEBOL, as a punishment for, several, maybe a few dozen, or even, let's call it a couple hundred hooligans, all of a sudden the whole country loses, and Spain wins. It just seems odd. My reaction yesterday and still today is own goal.
Yeah, I agree that it could have been played someplace else in Argentina.
Right. Or even South America.
Yeah.
This was a moment for South American soccer to celebrate itself, and now it's happening thousands of miles away.
Yeah, it is a shame for them, but I do think that CONMEBOL was kind of given free rein to almost do whatever they want, or just do whatever they want, given what happened.
And you know what they did?
They sold it.
They sold it. Yeah, they took the money.
Well, you can always count on soccer officials to do that.
Yeah, tie this into the FIFA scandal that is still going on.
Marcus is standing now, by the way.
Yeah. What is the, what was the lesson that we learned from the FIFA scandal is that the heads of these federations and confederations will do anything for the right amount of money. And what just happened here, it's like we haven't learned anything in the last 3 years. It's still take the money and run, pocket the money.
Well, we're starting to run pretty long, so I'm going to end the Libertadores conversation there. But we got 3 matches of the weekend. I think we got to go through them pretty quick, but the biggest one we'll start with, I think, is Arsenal versus Tottenham.
Yeah.
Another big Premier League match. This will be at Arsenal Sunday, 9:05 a.m. Eastern Time. Arsenal currently in 5th, Tottenham in 3rd in Premier League. Marcus, you watch a lot of Arsenal games.
I do.
Well, what are you most looking forward to in this one?
This is Tottenham has finished ahead of Arsenal for the last 2 seasons, and I'm going to put my Arsenal fan hat on. All I wanted out of this season is to finish above Tottenham. So yeah, this game has to go Arsenal's way for that to happen. I think things between the top 6 in the Premier League are so tight that these games where they match up against each other is
everyone's huge.
It almost means twice as much.
A win for Arsenal would bring them even with Tottenham, and maybe put them into the top 4. Or I guess, it would put them at least into a tie for the top 4. The other big Premier League match is Liverpool versus Everton. Liverpool still flying relatively high in 2nd place, and Everton in 6th. This is at Liverpool, maybe a little too much for Everton to handle, but it's Sunday at 11:15 a.m. Eastern. Can Everton maintain pace and
No.
No.
Liverpool's had Everton's number for
100 years?
Yeah, for I don't even know what the exact streak. I haven't written up any kind of preview or anything yet, but yeah, it is. I think I can only remember Everton winning once in recent years. It's been one-sided, to say the least, and I don't see that changing, especially given Liverpool's loss to PSG in the Champions League just, I think that was Wednesday, 2 days ago. Liverpool really will be looking for a reaction, and I think Jurgen Klopp's going to have them fired up, and they're going to come out furiously and overrun Everton.
Okay, and our final match to watch this weekend, I threw this one in here, is Roma hosting Inter Milan at the Stadio Olimpico, Sunday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. So Roma currently in 7th place in Serie A, Inter Milan in 3rd place, kind of returning to where they like to always be. Juventus is running away with Serie A, but the competition for Champions League top 4 is very fierce. Both these teams lost in the midweek in their Champions League bouts. Inter actually lost to Tottenham 1-0 at Tottenham.
Yeah.
But
at Wembley Stadium.
Yeah, at Wembley.
Tottenham doesn't have a stadium.
And now, I mean, not to get into Champions League talk, but Inter and Tottenham both have 7 points entering the final match day of Champions League group stage, with very close goal differentials and all of that. So Anyway, Roma finished, I believe, third in Serie A last year and has maybe not as deep of a roster as they had in the 2017-18 campaign, and have really suffered. And they have qualified for the round of 16 in Champions League and have done well in Champions League, but it has definitely affected their Serie A performance, where they're dropping points basically to everybody in the table. From
they're overextending themselves to match what they did last year.
Well, they cannot keep up with Juventus. They are having trouble keeping up with anybody in the top 3 or 4, but then also drawing teams that are, ranges 11th to as low as 18th place, and not just on the road, but also at home. Mm-hmm. So that has landed them in 7th. And if they want to return to Champions League, because they probably aren't going to work their way through the whole knockout rounds of Champions League, that would be a pretty big accomplishment.
Sure.
They have to turn it around very quickly, and doing it against Inter would be a great start for them. So massive match for Roma. I think maybe a little bit bigger than it is for Inter. But definitely a lot to be watching on Sunday in terms of soccer. Plenty to keep you entertained. Marcus, thank you for taking the time to come back here on this Friday. Is there anything else soccer-related or not soccer-related at this point that you'd like to share?
No, I mean, just how surreal this Boca. I'm looking at the official Boca versus River announcement. I didn't realize that it had become official, but what a way to just shamelessly sell their soul. Yeah, there are no real winners in this situation, except for Real Madrid, which gets a big, advertisement for their stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a big shame.
I hope you don't lose sleep over it, Marcus.
I've already lost sleep. I would have been napping Saturday.
That's true.
Waiting nervously.
Well, that wraps it up.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you, listeners. Be sure to follow us on iTunes by searching NESN, N-E-S-N, on iTunes to catch every NESN soccer podcast, as well as any NESN podcast whatsoever. Thank you for joining us. Have a good weekend.
Boy, I tell you so. Come on!